Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's...
Hey everyone, it's Mary Ann Pizzatola from the New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees. I have Sal with me today. This is the retiree edition, not the Friday Live, but today it's a Thursday Live and it's the Sanitation edition. And we're going to answer your questions, and there's a whole bunch of things that we've been getting, Sal's been getting about healthcare and prescriptions and pensions. And so we wanted to help you understand all of that. So let's see. You have, so Sal, you see all the questions on the side, right? You see all the people that are coming in from, right now it's coming in through YouTube. You see that? Okay.
Yep.
I should have asked, are you on your laptop or your phone?
I'm on my laptop.
Okay, good. So if anyone has questions, or I'm sure Sal will ask me questions or what he wants me to talk about, we'll be able to get into some of those things today. So right now I'm seeing just on the YouTube channel about 30 people. It's ticking up slow, but did you want to start talking about something, or?
Well, this is to all the active sanitation workers. Marianne does a lot for the retirees across every city agency and whatnot, and she's done a wonderful job. A lot of guys who come on, they're young and they're not worried about retirement. And I really think that it's extremely important that as active members, that you have to get on board and start worrying about your retirement. I found out this the other day, and I thought it was crazy. Crazy fact: the fastest growing demographic in the workforce in this country are people 75 and older. So these are people who retirees, people who have pensions, people who thought their lives were set up, and then all of a sudden they have to go back to work because their pensions aren't cutting it. The price of medicine's going up, and now they have to go back to work, and it's a shame.
Yeah, there's an article in the paper over the week, last weekend, where retirees in their 70s were going back to work, whether like walking dogs, not just like Walmart greeters, but like walking dogs or doing other things because they needed an income. I always tell people, like, they don't believe this. Like when you heard me this afternoon before we got onto this, I was talking to another a gentleman who helps me with my irrigation system at the house. And he's a young man and he's in his 30s as well. And he was teasing me about it. He knows my fight with protecting the city health, retirees, healthcare, and what we do. And explaining to him that many retirees don't make a lot of money, because we retired at a time when our incomes were low, and people don't believe that. When I told him literally my pension is a $35,000 pension, it's incredulous to him that is real. And I make more than most of my retirees. DC 37 is the lowest paid workers, lowest paid pensioners. So like Sally's one of my retirees, worked for DOE for 35 years, and her pension is literally less than $12,000 a year. And people don't understand this. Margaret, another 40-year retiree DOE, she was on the job for 40 years. Her pension, she nets like $28,000. And her husband doesn't have a pension. She's struggling like crazy. So this is why it's really important to be able to understand that there's going to come a time when your pension is not enough, that you have to make sure that, you will get Social Security most likely, but you have to make sure that both your pension and your Social Security will make ends meet. But even a retiree who has a Social Security, like for example, a Sally who has like, let's just say $12,000 pension, her Social Security is not $12,000. So if let's say her Social Security is 10,000 plus 12,000, could you still live on that in New York? No, she has to live with a relative. And she was telling me when I interviewed her the last time, she eats potatoes and onions, and she would like to have a little bit of meat with that. So that's the frustrating part. Steven says, yesterday I received a bill from my eye doctor. I went there for explanation. The women said I didn't reach my $2,100 cap. I lost about this, retired 444. So the $2,100 maximum out-of-pocket cap is for drugs, not physician. That's on your drug plan. So in your medical plan, if you are on Medicare, which I'm assuming you are, because you're talking to me about $2,100, you have a $283 deductible with Medicare, a $50 senior care deductible, and then you have just your copays of $15 for the visit. But if they do more than one thing in one visit, you will get hit with multiple copays. Thank you to the Municipal Labor Committee. I call it some of the teachers call it the Mulgrew tax, but I call it, I guess, the MLC tax. That's exactly what it is. And they did that to create a funding stream because of all the bad deals that they did before. But I could not live on that. I'm paying for a wedding. Yep. Ken, maybe you want to, I know she's not going to like that idea, but maybe a nice backyard wedding. If you want, you can come down here and use my backyard. That's like my mental health therapy. My yard is very pretty, but I'm not sure you want to come down this far. But yes, the $2,100 maximum out-of-pocket cap, that is what they call the Inflation Reduction Act. Before there was no cap on drugs, you could be paying $1 million. And now, once you hit that $2,100, there are no other expenses for your drug usage for the rest of the year. I know, Ken, she's going to want that fancy wedding at probably Lenny's in Great Neck or wherever the heck they are, and that big crystally glass staircase, and enjoy. Hopefully you only do it once in your lifetime. So let's see, what else do we have? So far, that's all the other questions. So what else did you want to talk about?
The question came from Matthew. From what I've been reading, is there a strong chance we could end up like Detroit, no pensions because of mismanagement?
Oh, I didn't even see that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. So, Matthew, it's unlikely. And the reason being is the state constitution, Article 5, Section 7, requires that the state pay your pension. It cannot be reduced. When can that change? How could that change? Well, on two circumstances, actually. One, they open the Constitution. That's why we always do con-con. Do not open the Constitution. And we've been fighting that for, every 20 years it comes up. So if they open it up, they're going to be able to change that provision, which we don't want them to do. So that could be one way. The other way is if the city goes bankrupt and there is no money, right? That means the city still does, by law, have to pay that. But where are they going to get this money from? And Sal and I were talking about this before, is if the city doesn't have money and they still have this obligation, they're going to have to pay you somehow. Whether they pull money out from somewhere else, they raise taxes, they raise the cost of insurance, they raise your copays, raise your deductibles, raise your property taxes, they put a premium on your health care, they delay your contracts. Guess what? Those were a lot of the things that they did in the 70s. So in 1976, I think it was, there was an agreement to pause all of the union's contracts. And I think it was called the Hilton Agreement, and then later the Americana Agreement, or vice versa. I have to look at the dates to remember which one's which. And they called them that because those were the hotels at the time in which they met, and they made the agreements to defer all of the raises, the increases, the fringe benefits. And then later, the agreement was to restore those and pay them back to when they were supposed to be due. But you didn't get that money till years later, and there wasn't like an interest on it. So yes, I don't think like Detroit where it went bankrupt, but where there's always a risk that that could happen is where you read in the paper and us standing against what was a proposal as like an alternate option in the city council budget, which the United Federation of Teachers Union was pushing last year with Mayor Adams in the state budget. That didn't make it into the state budget, but this year it happened to show up in the city council proposal. And knowing the relationship between the teachers union and the city council, we started to get suspect over this. And we were not told that this was going to happen. We read it on our own, and then we were called because people knew that we were not supporting this last year. And why? Well, not the first thing that they were trying to do this year that they tried to do last year was called the reamortization of the UAL, unfunded accrued liability. What does that mean? And that means reamortize. So you know what that means. That's like when you go to refinance, like your mortgage or your car loan. And when you refinance something, usually it's because there's an incentive to do so. You get a lower interest rate. And then by doing that, sometimes you take a 20-year mortgage, you might drop it down to 15. It reduces what you're paying. But if you're doing it like the way they wanted to, you're actually adding like another, I think it was adding like another 12 or 14 years to the debt. So the city said, if we do this, it'll save money. Well, not really, because what they were telling you is that they wanted to, by 2032, the plan is this current amortization schedule would fully fund your pension by 2032. And when I say fully fund, current retirees are mostly fully funded right now. We're about 83 or 85% funded for current workers' future pensions, those of you that are still working that will plan to collect, because that's a debt that the city knows it's going to have to pay because of the law. That funding, we should be 100% fully funded according to the amortization by the previous actuary that set this in place by 2032. 100%. And that's a good solid footing in case the bottom does drop out of the city or the state, that there's money there to pay your retirement. What they wanted to do was refinance that. And so it would reduce what the city had to pay today, its contributions into the pension fund, reduce it today, so it lowers their payment, and then spread the term out well past the 2032 date. It was like 2040 something. So why would you do that? You're paying more interest. You're paying more over time. Well, the United Federation of Teachers had acknowledged in some video that they wanted to extend the time because in the pensions, the teachers' pension system, they're guaranteed a 7% return. So if they went from 2032 to 2042, that was, or 2046, whatever it was, an additional 7% a year for that many years. So that'll help the teacher's retirement system, but that's not going to help the taxpayer. And it puts everybody else in jeopardy, because if something else happens along that road and the city can't pay that, now if we're in a financial, did you ever hear the city says, we're rich with cash, we don't know what to do with it? No one ever says that. So that's the reamortization. Think about it like a refinance. It reduces your current contribution today, but it extends those payments over time. So you're paying more and you're paying more interest. Okay. The even scarier thing was in the city council proposal, in the proposed budget that Julie Menon put out, also called for pension obligation bonds, POBs. Pension obligation bonds is one of the things that destroyed Detroit. And not only that, you saw my Substack. If you follow me on Substack, I wrote about this. All the other jurisdictions like California, Louisiana, New Jersey, whose pension systems or even the municipalities went bankrupt because of doing pension obligation bonds. And so this is where the city would borrow money. And so now that's a debt to pay the unfunded liability, pay that. And then now they have to make sure that the money that's in the fund is making money, because it not only has to make money for the pension, it now has to pay back the debt and the interest on that. And this is where you turn into situations where, look, we're in a war. that people don't understand why we're in. Many people, no matter what political side you're on, are against it. We don't know when we're getting out. This isn't the first war we've had this year. Our government is spending billions of dollars doing that, also threatening our state that it's not going to give it billions in funding it, which the previous Congress had committed to giving the state. Why would you do something that carries a risk when we're not even on firm footing with the federal government giving us the money that it promised us last year it was going to give us this year? So I would say to you, those two things is why I wrote that Substack piece, was because I was concerned with the larger picture of what's happening, that we could end up in a situation if we are in a fiscal crisis, which they're all saying, remember this is a game. Budget season is a game, city and state. When we walked into this season in December, January, the mayor said we were $12 billion in debt. Miraculously, we're down to 4.5. Well, guess what? We were down to 4.5 last year too. So this is a numbers game. If he screams louder and says that there's a crisis, maybe he'll get more money out of the state. I also did a short little video the other day that when he talks about that this crisis that we have is greater than the crisis of the 70s, that's also misrepresentation. Because at the time, the city's deficit was like $600 million, which was 5% of the budget. Today, that $5 billion is about 5% of the city budget. We're in the same exact situation. The numbers are just bigger. And when you put those into that kind of a perspective and you talk apples to apples, we're exactly in the same situation, except we're in better footing today, because in the 1970s, the city couldn't borrow money. Its bond ratings was in the tank. No bank would lend the city money, which is why they were going to the unions to help bail them out to pay on the bonds the municipal bonds that they were selling to the public. So no, today we don't have that kind of a cash flow crisis. We're funding our futures. We're funding the retiree health benefit trust. We're funding these rainy day funds. We're funding your pensions. In 1975, we couldn't do that. They didn't even know if the lights were going to stay on in 1975 because they didn't have any money. So if there's a really great documentary made by, I think it's the son of Felix Rohatyn. Is it called Drop Dead New York? It's on Amazon. And it kind of puts things in perspective. And watch the faces. Like when you're watching the scene where they're talking about the teachers union lending money to the city. Al Shanker was then union president, and he did not loan the city money, that agreed to loan the city the money from the pension until the 11th hour. And when you see him show up at City Hall, everyone was angry with him that he didn't want to do it. And he ultimately did lend the city money to help out. But there's a lot more conflict. The union didn't do that out of the goodness of its heart. There's a lot of politics to that. But if he was willing to do it and wanting to do it, he wouldn't have had the sour puss on his face that he had. And I mean, I don't know where the hell they got this footage from, but it was drop dead city. If you go watch that on Amazon, if you have Amazon Prime, I think you'll really like it. It'll put things in perspective for you about what things were like then and how they actually found out that the city had no money. When the new comptroller took over and and Abe Beam became the mayor, he was the previous comptroller. He would just put like these uncashed checks and bills and stuff in the closet. Like there was no reconciliation of bills and no one was keeping the books. And when he found all this, he lost his mind. He's like, we have no money. How did you not know this? But yeah, watch that. I think you'll enjoy it. Let's see. I'll scroll down, see if there's anything down there.
There's a few questions about New York City Comptroller borrowing $4 billion to fund the housing.
Let me see. Oh, scroll up. Whose name is that on that? So I know what I'm looking for.
Irene Jordan is one of them.
Irene. I just read that the mayor wants to use city funds to erect housing. I think it was around, I think the number's 4 billion. But I want you to know that we've actually did an interview with Brad Lander about this right before he was running for mayor. And in the history of this, this actually goes back very, very far. So one of the historical pieces you guys can Google later is Elect Chester in Queens. It was started by Harry Van Arsdale, who was then union president of Local 3, the electricians union. And they used union monies to build Elect Chester, and it still survives today. It was union housing built by unions for union workers and their cooperatives, I believe. So you're kind of own your apartment, you're an owner within the corporation. And it helped them. They had like a restaurant, they had a park, it's like its own little city. It was all built up for that. They can, if you know anyone in Leicester, go take a look. It is pretty awesome at what they've created. And it was the same kind of a system as what they've been doing this now again since the 90s under other elected officials, though, in helping use pension monies to build union-built housing for union workers that were affordable housing. And according to the articles that both Sal and I read today, that this would be about $1,000 a month up so that people would be able to afford. These are like your starter homes. It gets you on your feet till you start working and making money, and then you decide to go start your families or move on to something else. But many people stay there for decades. And there's a lot of these apartments, Leicester is huge. And this is what they wanted to do. So this isn't new. Don't think it's new. They've been doing this for decades. This is nothing like that, nothing unusual. But we did have some questions that we went back to the reporters with and hoping that we would get an answer to make sure like there is oversight. And what the article said today, I think it was one of the New York Times article that was referenced by the chief leader, as well as the press statement that was put out by Mark Levine, the comptroller. And if you realize, like last year's election season, Justin Brannan, Mark Levine, Brad Lander, they all wanted to do this. The mayors have been doing this for years. This is not new. And I was told today that monies would be taken out of the pensions, $4 billion, and it would be put into a trust that was run by the AFL-CIO. And I said, the one thing I could tell you is I would really prefer to see that there was oversight and that there would be like a quarterly accounting of that money. That would probably make all stakeholders, those currently retired and those future to be retired, feel a heck of a lot better about that decision because that is their money. And I think that's the least you could ask for is a quarterly report on how that's being done. Because look, we all know construction takes forever to be built, and they're not going to be bringing in rent, which is what would fund those back, as Sal and I were talking about, on a 40-year amortization schedule. So 40 years is a really long time. You take out $4 billion. And I just want to confirm that figure, because I was not sure if it's 4 billion or 8, like she said. $4 billion. So read the chief leader. They had an article on it that came out today, and the New York Times had it today, and it's also on social media. So great question, Irene. Who else did you want me to pop up? Barbara, can they change the law about reimbursing Medicare B and IRMA? Well, wouldn't you be shocked, Barbara? The Municipal Labor Committee was actually trying to do that before. I don't know if they will revisit that. And I hope to God they make it. If they want to do it for active workers, you guys better go fight like hell to make sure that that doesn't leave. And if they do it to current retirees, you know I will. We will definitely sue on that. But for an active worker, if you're still working, Barbara, I don't know if you're retired or active, but that is not supposed to be changed, but I'll tell you where that is. That is in the Administrative Code 12-126, that the law requires that the city provide for Medicare B premium reimbursement and IRMA. It literally says that the city will pay the full cost of health coverage up to the HIPAA HMO and reimburse Medicare B. And in 2001, that's when the city council went back and passed an amendment to 12-126 to make sure it covered the full reimbursement to whatever Medicare B is charged by the federal government, including the IRMA. So if they go to change that administrative code, you all better come out screaming with us whenever I call, because that will protect all of us. And the city and the unions and the MLC have tried. And when I say the unions and the MLC, it was really just Sanitation under Harry Nespoli, Henry Garrido, DC 37, Michael Mulgrew, United Federation of Teachers, Gloria Middleton, CWA 1180, Greg Floyd, Local 237 were the primary people that were pushing to change the administrative code back in 2023. And if they were successful at that, they could have changed that too. If they go to change that, that is a law change. And if I put out that all call, you guys better come running. All right, what's next, Sal?
This is more for active retirees for 831. As far as the HIPAA, they released on the website for 831 at least. I can't speak for 444, but it was talking about the privacy of the active workers and retirees. I'm not sure where we stand with that. It says they are not selling our information to come up with the $1 billion as part of the savings. I'm not sure where we're at that.
So you want me to talk about the HIPAA statement? Yes?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So the HIPAA statement that was put on, now let me see if I go to my notes on this. The HIPAA statement that was put on your union website, I did review, and I did have some of my own questions actually, because it didn't really make sense to me without what I was really looking for was that there was something 100% that said this union will not divulge private health data from any part of the plan for any active or retiree in the welfare fund. That's what I was looking for, and I didn't see something like that, but I just want to find my notes. Give me 1 second. I'm getting closer. I'm one of those people with 1,000 windows open. And of course, oops, is this it? Yes. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. I reviewed that statement and also ran it into a comparison with the federal HIPAA statute. So the answer is that statement mostly protects you, but even HIPAA isn't a Loctite protection. There's loopholes. So yes, it protects the correct definition of protected health information, PHI, protected health information. So if you hear me say PHI, that's what I'm talking about. And for what it does protect you for. But there are some potentially weak and potentially misleading statements. So where this can get more nuanced, and in this situation, what you should know about is like disclosure to trustees. So who can get your data? Your trustees can. They can look at that data. Disclosure of private health information to board of trustees is for administrative purposes because they have to administer your claims, right? It's legally permissible under HIPAA, but only if they're acting as plan administrators and that they have proper safeguards. The risk comes in is like, and this is a gray area where private health information, protected health information can be more broadly accessed by than what you might expect, right? Your spouses most likely can get your data. If you're concerned about that, then you actually need to tell them not to share your data, not even with your spouse. Under HIPAA, there are disclosures to family. They generally require your agreement or your opportunity to object to that, but automatic spousal access is more permissive than necessary. Broad operational change languages. So what does that mean? Healthcare operations. And this is where we start to get into that little gray fuzzy area. Healthcare operations is interpreted broadly as legal, accounting, underwriting, plan administration. It's accurate legally, but it allows for extensive internal sharing within the organization of the welfare fund. But many people underestimate how broad that category is. They do have to provide you a disclosure with how it's being used when there's no longer subject to disclosure. But this is also very important because it's often overlooked that once data is shared outside a covered entity, and in some cases, protections can be weakened. Does it protect employees and retirees' data from being shared, this document? Well, the short answer on that is it does protect it, not as tightly as I would like to see or you might expect, but what protections are existing in this document on your website right now? The document does include core HIPAA protections. Private health information cannot be freely shared without justification. I'm putting an asterisk next to that word for right now. Must follow minimum necessary procedures. It requires safeguards. It gives you the right to access your data, restrict it sometimes, or track disclosures as to who they gave it to. But HIPAA is not a strict no sharing law. You've got to understand this. People think it's a stopgap, a brick wall, but it's not. It is a controlled sharing law. And under this notice, your data can be shared without your consent in many situations. It protects you from random disclosure, but it does not prevent broad administrative or institutional sharing. When can it be shared? Here are some key points in when it can be shared in as simple language as I can make it. Without your permission, most important, core operations, asterisk, remember, very, very broad, for treatment with doctors and providers, for payment of claims, eligibility, etc. This is still within the drug plan, okay? Health plan operations. I'm going to put 2 stars next to this. For administration, audits, and legal. Now, your welfare fund does not provide your health insurance. Your welfare fund provides your drug plan. And I need to keep saying this because this is where you heard the Municipal Labor Committee made a deal in the NYC EPPO contract that they were going to share your drug data. If your drug data was shared by your union to United Healthcare and Emblem, that the Municipal Labor Committee the unions of a whole, 75% of those people decided unions share the data of 75% of the people in the NYC EPPO, then the health plan would credit them $100 million towards the $1 billion that the union said that they were committing to save the city with the implementation of this new plan. This is the largest loophole in terms of volume sharing, that they can do it for core operations, treatment, payment, and health plan operations. We're going to get into that a little bit more because that is my still number one big concern. Plan administrators, trustees, the trustees can review claims and appeals, internal decision-making. That's common. That's what usually is where data is shared. Business associates, third-party administrators, lawyers, accountants, as long as contracts are in place, this is allowed with those roadblocks as to where that sharing ends. I'm not seeing any of that here. Legal and government purposes, court orders, subpoenas, law enforcement, health oversight agencies. That's not here either. Public safety interest, that's also not an issue. Required by law, federal, state, local mandates can override the consent. There's nothing there that would do that either. With your permission, what can they share with your permission? When can they do it? It's required for marketing, but this document says they don't do marketing. The sale of your private health information is also prohibited in this document. So they're not selling it. Psychotherapy notes, most non-core disclosures, okay? Stricter permissions. These require explicit consent. It cannot be used in legal proceedings without your consent or a court order, and I don't see them. That's not a part of this plan either. The bottom line is, for accuracy, it is legally compliant with HIPAA if they share data. However, it is written in a way that allows for broad internal administrative use, but that's still saying it's within the welfare fund, okay? Protection level. This does provide a baseline HIPAA protection, but it does not fully shield employee and retiree data from sharing. Again, it's vague. When can your data be shared? Very broadly, especially for plan administration, payment, internal operations, legal compliance. Again, this is still not saying to me it can be shared with United Healthcare, who has no affiliation, connection, administration of your drug plan. Now, we went into looking at, can the trustees share the drug plan data with United Healthcare? Not automatically, and not just because they ask. Under HIPAA, private health data, including drug data, cannot be shared freely between separate entities unless one of the following things apply. And separate entities is United Healthcare, because they have no affiliation with your drug plan. Asterisk, because they are in a contract with Emblem Health. And that's just, I'm saying, Emblem is in a contract for your drug plan today, and they are in a contract with United for your health plan, but they are still separate. The only ways that this sharing would be legal is if they were acting as a business associate, which I do not think that they are doing. That means that they're performing a function on behalf of the fund. I don't think they're doing that. They're not, there's a business agreement, a BAA, a business associate agreement in place. I don't see any of that. The data is shared limited to what would be necessary. But when I asked our advisors about this, they said that there's a separate administration. They administer the health plan separately. It has nothing to do with the drug plan. And this is a problem because United Healthcare is not administering your drug plan. And they're not entitled to that specific data. Now, this is where those asterisks come in. If the data is being used for healthcare operations, HIPAA allows for sharing for care coordination, cost management, and plan administration, but only if the entities have a legitimate operational relationship, which means they have to sign a contract. And the use is directly related to treatment, payment, and operations. Follow this part really clear, because this is what's going to tell you why I have a concern and why some of our advisors had concerns. In this case, United Healthcare is a separate insurer, and they're running a different benefit, medical versus drugs. Sharing this detailed drug data is legally questionable unless it is clearly tied to a coordination of benefits of care. But all data has to be de-identified, and that's not what they wanted. They wanted all of your data, and they were extrapolating 700 different data points from your welfare fund drug data. If all identifiers are removed, it is no longer considered private health information, protected health information, PHI, and then it can be shared more freely. But if it includes names, IDs, dates tied to individuals, as in age or dates of medications or any of that, prescription histories, then it's still private health information, protected health, and it is protected. With explicit member authorization, you have to say you're willing to share it. But that's rarely used in bulk data sharing. Usually, like, what they're trying to do is get the union's presidents to agree to give the data over to United Healthcare. What this policy specifically allows, and it doesn't, it allows for business associates, like I said, payment and operations, and third-party administrators. I'm not seeing that. It does not explicitly allow sharing of protected health with unrelated insurers, United Healthcare, and cross-plan sharing without a purpose. Broad data transfers for strategy, cost shifting, or plan redesign. The biggest legal issue in this scenario, which we have raised, is why does United Healthcare need this drug data if it doesn't administer your drug plan? Well, if the answer is to analyze costs, design a new plan, or compare utilization, that this can cross into improper use unless the data is de-identified or there's a formal role agreement necessary. Now, I have not seen this agreement, and I've heard it was being sent to the unions. I've not yet seen it yet, and I've not been told that they were given one. In one of the MLC meetings months ago, the Municipal Labor Committee was working on this type of an agreement to give to the union welfare funds. So if you guys are close to your welfare fund people, you might want to ask them about that. Did you get an agreement to sign, and make sure that they're not doing it? What would HIPAA say if it was looking at this? Well, likely that if there wasn't a contract, a plan agreement, and a business associate agreement, it's not legal. Likely not compliant if United is just interested in the data. They're not administering the drug plan. The data includes identifiable member information, or if the plan is being used for plan design, bidding, and cost shifting. Now, that's my other biggest fear, because when they did the NYC EPPO, the unions promised that this plan would save $1 billion to the city, but it never revealed in any of the almost 100 blacked out, redacted pages how that would happen and what would happen to you if it wasn't met, if the $1 billion wasn't met. So bottom line in plain English, this policy, this document does not stop the trustees from sharing the data, but HIPAA does limit when and why and how they can do it. In our situation with United Healthcare, they have no role in your drug plan. And if they're getting the identifiable data, that is definitely highly questionable. Now, the feds also put something like this, were fighting this in place, like some of the federal unions, because they were trying to do something, very, very similar. But this is a concern because when we talked about why did Emblem want to do this, they wanted to create an AI database for care management, cost containment, and to prevent catastrophic incidents. And the data was not going to be de-identified. All of your information was going to be exposed. And they were looking at extrapolating over 700 data points. They were going to put all this data into an AI-driven database for cost stratification, which meant you were going to be assigned a risk ratio as to how much of a risk you are to United Healthcare. So this one situation right here explains and raises serious HIPAA concerns, because what we're talking about is not automatically legal, but it's walking right up to that line. It's not illegal, I'm sorry, but it's walking right up to that line and could cross over it depending upon how this whole thing is structured. The main issue is that they're taking unidentified, full identified prescription data, hundreds of data points a person. They're feeding it into an AI system. It's used for cost management, cost containment, care management, and catastrophic risk prediction. And the entire receiving of it of United Healthcare, who doesn't administer your drug plan. But for the reasons that they're using this for, this is the concern. Because for what they're using it for is profiling, right? HIPAA doesn't prohibit AI, but if they're using PHI to build predictive models, which they are, they admitted that in the meeting, stratify risks, individuals with a risk score, which they admitted, it becomes problematic if it would lead to benefit restrictions, steering into certain plans or certain care management plans, and adverse decisions about individuals, denials of care, tamping down your care. And it opens the door to HIPAA scrutiny and even potentially discrimination concerns, which was one of the issues that was actually raised by one of the other union presidents, is that if this was going into a predictive modeling built on an AI database, could it actually discriminate against people in a million different discriminatory ways? So that's really, to me, what I would really prefer to see is that the union puts a statement up next to this document that says their local 831 welfare fund will not share any data for retirees or employees outside of the administration of the welfare fund prescription plan. That's it. Like, not giving it to United Healthcare. We're not giving it to anybody. It is only for the administration of this plan. Your data is safe with us. We are not sharing it. We are not selling it. We're not doing anything with it. There's got to be a simple, tight, short statement that says that. And I think that right there would definitely make me feel a little bit better. I'm really sorry that this was a very long answer, but I wanted you to understand why we see the concern in that. And hopefully that answers your question. It's heavy, I know, but
It's good that we know.
yeah, I mean, that was really a very thorough analysis. You asked me to look into that for you, and I did, and I would have preferred. Look, these agreements they're convoluted, and sometimes the language doesn't make sense. And then if you read it, it looks tight, and then you read it a little bit more, and it looks like a loophole. Well, if you're feeling like it's a loophole, it's probably a loophole.
Yeah.
And honestly, a simple, plain English statement that says our welfare fund will not share drug data with anybody outside of the welfare fund. They're not trustees, meaning will not go to United Healthcare, will not go to Emblem Health. And the tricky part is Emblem has your drug plan, and they are a partner with United.
A personal one.
Go ahead. What you got?
I've seen his name for years with the MLC and also with our union. What's your opinion of Alan Klingler?
Alan Klinger?
Yeah, because he sits on our funds, our welfare funds board, and I know he has a big part to do with the LMC. Like, what was his part with the MLC and all the agreements and whatnot. And should he be sitting on any of our boards, being that he's also part of every union board?
I have been conflicted about Alan Klinger for years. Okay, so Alan Klinger is an attorney, and so there's a lot of history to hear. Randy Weingarten, everyone knows, was formerly the president of the United Federation of Teachers. She's now the head of the AFT. Randy wasn't a teacher by trade. Randy was an attorney, and she came out of Strzok and Strzok, the same law firm as Alan Klinger. She was the attorney assigned to Sandra Feldman in the UFT back in the, I don't know what the heck was that, 90s. And she helped the UFT do their bargaining. Well, when Sandra was leaving, she convinced Randy to step out of her lawyer hat and go to work in the schools so she could appoint her to the next union president when Sandra was stepping down. And that's what she did. I am leaving. My term's not over. I am appointing Randy. And so Randy came out of Strzok and Strzok. Alan Klinger was a partner at Strzok and Strzok. And they were still the law firm for the Municipal Labor Committee and a whole smattering of unions for years, decades, until the firm went bankrupt. And when the firm went bankrupt, then most of the people left. I mean, this was like over 100-year anniversary firm. Like they've been around forever. And they made a lot of really bad decisions, and their staff was fleeing like crazy. Alan Klinger then moved into another firm called Steptoe. Alan is still the head, the lawyer for UFT, DC 37, Sanitation, 237, CWA, and a whole bunch of other unions. He is also, Harry Nespoli appointed him as labor chair. I think it was an appointment. I don't think there was like an election or anything. They appointed him as the labor chair. So in the MLC, when there were these meetings going on between this tripartite committee, which is labor, management, and then the neutral, who's not really neutral, but that's a whole nother show. That's Martin Scheinman, is supposed to be the neutral, but he's like embedded into teachers' contracts and a bunch of other union contracts as the arbitrator, who makes $7,500 a day. But Alan makes millions of dollars from all of these other unions. So the question here is, in the Municipal Labor Committee, if he is the labor chair and he is the general counsel for the Municipal Labor Committee, that means he is tasked with making decisions for the body of 101 unions as a whole. How can he do that when he is also the counsel of all the unions on the executive board and a bunch of others? It's a conflict, because if I'm your representative, my job is to represent you and the interest of your members to the best of my ability and forsaking all others. Like, I cannot take any other, that would create a conflict if I'm an attorney. If you go to hire a lawyer and they say, I'm sorry, I can't take your case, I'm conflicted. That means that you understand that. I'm sure that that's happened before. That tells you that they represent someone else's interest that would conflict with them representing you to the best of their ability, the way you would want them to, and that by ethics, they have to. And he did the ethical thing and say to you, I can't do this. Alan doesn't do that. So how can Alan represent you, Sal, Sanitation Union, when he's also representing the UFT, DC 37, and the body of 101 unions, when sometimes the needs of all of these different entities may conflict? And they do, because when the UFT walks into the MLC with the largest voting power in the entire organization versus you, the sanitation people, sanitation workers, then there may be a time that union wants to do something, and with the power of their vote, they can get away with that. But they're going to encourage you to go along because it's easier to go along than say to you, hey, Sal, need you to know this, but if you go along with what they're trying to do here or what they're trying to do with the MLC, this is the pros and cons of it, and this is how it might impact your members negatively. Alan's not going to say that to you. And we've been screaming at the top of our lungs for the last 5 years. Alan should not be on multiple boards. He should not be in multiple unions. He cannot. This is a pure conflict of interest. So hopefully that answers your question on my opinion on that. Let's see. I would like to know why I'm paying more taxes as a disabled retiree than when I was working. Tina, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about there. I don't know what kind of taxes you're talking about, an income tax or what. I don't honestly, that's hard to answer that. And you are not in sanitation to my understanding. So if my memory serves me right, please email the organization your question with full details and we'll respond to that there. Yes, I'm sorry I didn't see that, Christina. And they have a bowling alley at Electchester. Yes, it's like its own little city. Daniel, I'm okay with the pension funding idea as long as union workers are on the front line. And that was what they were supposed to do. Is it's supposed to be built by union labor? But this is what the transparency in this should be, right? Because if you know about it up front, it would make you feel better because it's not being done in darkness. You're being given the answers. You're being shown how. It's like every month you get a statement from your bank account. They tell you where your money's going. If you have an investment fund, a retirement fund, a TDA, an annuity, they're telling you what they're doing with your money. Don't you think that they should do the same thing? There should be a public statement, especially that the comptroller is encouraging this. And I think that would make it feel better. Mary Amberto. So when does IRMAA, that's IRMAA, by the way, income related Medicare adjustment amount, start when you start Medicare? So IRMAA is only for high income people. It's over, I think, $106,000 or $109,000 individual and double that for family, joint filing. And the form will come out on the OLR website in May, and you won't see that money until October. Is there anything else you're seeing, Sal, that I'm missing?
Medicare Advantage, any updates? The city pushing that?
City is not yet pushing Medicare Advantage, but this is why we're always keeping our eye on this, because we know that they're still trying to find savings in the budget for this $6 billion deficit, and you just never know how desperate they will come. The fact that union leaders tried to take away Medicare reimbursement, along with the fact that they took away our Blue Cross GHI, shows that they're not workers for the workers and they get paid well to represent. Yeah, I kind of agree with you there, Annette. Does the health contract discuss usage of aid? Well, no. And if it does, it's in the redacted almost 100 pages that we cannot see. But I was able to hear a meeting in which they discussed how they would use this. And it's exactly the words that I said to you. We're going to create an AI database for cost management, cost containment, care management, and risk stratification. And they want to be able to look, they want to know what their costs are going to be. Because if you're very sick and you're spending in the Medicare Advantage contract, there were provisions that said once you hit a total medical spend of about $75,000, they were going to assign someone to manage your care for you. They were going to get involved. They were going to call you. And some of you are getting those calls right now, by the way. So if you're on the NYC EPPO or even on the Medicare Advantage, Medicare Senior Care, some of you have been telling us, actually a lot of you have been telling us that you're getting calls from a pharmacy or a phone call that says, Emblem gave us your information and assigned us your case. Can you talk to us about your drugs or about your medical? We want to know this information. One woman on Staten Island called me and said she got a call from a pharmacy on the other side of the island that she's never stepped foot in, wanting to talk to her about her husband's drugs. And she's like, I'm not talking to you about this. You don't have to talk to them about that. Now, if any of you ever get a call from an insurance company, from Emblem, from a third-party non-entity that you don't want to talk to, you have no obligation to talk to these people. If they're calling you saying that Emblem assigned your case to them to talk to you, or, hey, I'm United Healthcare calling you about the NYC EPPO plan, and I'd like to talk to you about your healthcare or your drug usage, you could say, please take me off your call list. I don't want to talk to you, and hang up. You have every right to do that. It doesn't prevent them if you're a union or someone does, like we have teachers that are retired that don't have a union drug plan. The city started sharing their drug data. Anyone who's managerial who pays for the drug rider, or as a union who doesn't provide a drug plan, and you get your drug rider from the city, your data has been shared since January. And those are some of the people starting to get those calls. So it won't stop your drug data if you're in that situation being shared on a weekly basis to United or Emblem. However, under no circumstances are you obligated to answer those questions. You can say, please do not call me again. Do not call my spouse. Do not call my dependents. I don't want to answer any questions. They will put you on that do not call list for them, but that won't stop your data from being shared. It'll just stop the calls coming to you, and you have every right to do that. What else you got, Sal?
Alder's leadership have arrogantly assuring members they're implementing an oversight committee to deal with our problems with United Health AI.
Where's that?
Laura Genovese.
839.
54.
854. I'm a little up there. Hold on. 850. Mulgrew?
Yeah.
Mulgrew's leadership have arrogantly assured members they're implementing an oversight committee to deal with the problems. Well, that's interesting, Laura. I want to know who is implementing it and who is on it. Is it an MLC body? Is it a UFT body? Because we all know how the UFT just approves contracts without reading them and then approves them. Like, look what the health committee did. The health committee approved the NYCE PPO and they didn't see the contract till what, 3 weeks later, a month later? I don't have any faith in that. And the oversight is an issue for me because there's not enough transparency here. They've shown a poor track record of making bad decisions in darkness. I have no faith in this. And I don't know who's on it. That should all be public. And the reports to that should be shared. Michael Mulgrew, I will tell you, was one of the few unions that were publicly in support of drug sharing data.
Has Mamdani answered your request for a meeting or a phone call?
No.
Short and sweet.
That was the fastest answer I gave you tonight. Yeah. I agree with you, Laura. I'm sure your oversight committee will make sure it remains confidential, and they will probably talk about it by candlelight.
What is the status of Intro 1096, and is there any other legislation that we should be keeping an eye on and supporting?
Okay, so our organization is working on 2 bills. I am not sure what's happening with our bills at this point. To put it bluntly, we have a bill in the city council we're trying to get introduced, and a bill in the state that we were just doing a lobby day in the state. Both entities are telling us that they're under review and we have not been issued a number yet. So 1096 is a dead bill because it expired. And then the bill, we're trying to get a new bill with tightened language that the UFT and hopefully DC 37 will stop fighting. And sanitation, of the unions that fought our bills last year, was the executive board. Harry Nespoli, Michael Mulgrew, DC 37, Gloria Middleton, and Greg Floyd. Those are the 5 unions that were pushing against our legislation. Retirees, current retirees, are not in unions. You could be in a retiree chapter, you could be in an association, but you're not in the union's collective bargaining unit. You can't vote on a contract once you retire, and yet still, for the first time in history, to the extent that they've done this, unfortunately, management convinced labor to sell off retiree healthcare and try to force us into Medicare Advantage. And then passed copays on us to raise about $50 million a year for active worker benefit, not current retirees. So that became, that's why a lot of the retired teachers call that the Mulgrew tax. But this was approved by the Municipal Labor Committee. And I'm going to tell you all tonight, and I've said this before, but this is one of our, it was our second sanitation edition. So right now in the Municipal Labor Committee, they are talking about increasing copays or increasing the deductible on current retirees on Medicare. So we need to stop that, because as I said to you when I started this, my pension is $35,000. We have retirees that make less than us. So now your pension today, when I retired, my pension was fairly comfortable. 25 years later, that pension is not so comfortable. And then unions that I'm not in any longer are passing a cost on to me to create a funding stream for them that's putting me even more behind the eight ball. I have no way of making money. I don't have an additional income. And then if you look at the cost of utilities and the cost of groceries, I don't got to tell you, you guys live this. So when you're looking at all of that, now they're adding a cost to healthcare that you did not plan on. This becomes a real great expense. We have retirees cutting their pills in half, not taking their medicine, canceling oncology appointments, even with a confirmed cancer, and are in cancer treatment. We have retirees not eating full groceries. So they're like Sally, I told you, she tells me she eats potatoes and onions because she can't afford meat. This is not how you broke your ass for decades to live when you're older. And so if tomorrow's union, and you're still working today, if some little snot-nose next year, in 10 years, 20 years from now goes, we need to create more money. Let's charge those old retirees more money. We'll get it. And they can't say anything because they're not in the union. They won't even know. But you're going to know, because for some reason you're going to fill a prescription and you're not able to pay for the whole thing. You're not able to go to the doctor. All of a sudden, a doctor's visit that was free or $15 is now $50 or $100, and you can't keep going because you just don't have the means to go. Literally, I did it on the radio on WBAI. I host a show on Monday nights at 5:00, and this lady who'd worked for the city forever in parks has cancer, and she has to go through treatment for the next 3 years. And so she has to go see the doctor a couple times a week. She had to stop going because she couldn't afford to go. You should never be put in that position. And her cancer was most likely caused from her job. So that's why you need to fight this. This is not just retirees. We're saying, hey, active workers, listen to us, because this is happening to us today. This is going to happen to you tomorrow. Get involved in this fight, push back on your leadership, and tell them to stop doing this to retirees, because you will one day be here. You're thinking today, my salary looks okay, or my benefits will be fine. But I'm telling you, I retired 25 years ago, and my pension was like $32,000. Today it's like $35,000. You're not making a lot of money over time. You're only getting a pension increase of between 1% and 3% of the consumer price index on the first $18,000 of your pension. So let's just look at that for a second, so you understand the math. They will only pay you a COLA, a max 3% on the first $18,000. So $18,000 times 3% is $540. That is the most in 1 year when you are retired after 10 years that you will ever get. $540. And they divide that by 12 payments, so you only get $45. That's insane. Yeah, it's not I want to check my math one more time because I suck at math. $18,000 times 3%. That was the max that we got, was 5. Now, we haven't seen 3%. This year, I think it was 1.2. So let me do that one for you, because I haven't seen 3% since COVID. Oops. 18,000 times 1.2%. That's $216 we got this year. Divided by 12 is $18. My raise this year was $18 a month.
is why the actives need to get involved. One day it will be you.
One
And
day.
yeah, sure, it looks like your pension looks great now, like if you're retiring now,
Yeah.
but in 20, 25 years, God willing, you have long life, it's not going to last. With inflation, just
No.
the cost of living, everything, it's not going to last. So you need to fight for the retirees now. You need to fight for yourselves as well.
Now, I did speak to your union president. He did tell me that he was not going to share your drug data. I've not met with him yet. He's agreed to meet with me. I'm looking forward to that day. I need to be in town long enough to do that. I'm hoping in May. I would prefer to see that in that HIPAA statement in writing, in a statement from the welfare fund with the president saying, we will not share your drug data. I would prefer to see that way.
Yeah.
Yes, and the fiduciary responsibility. I did a video about that as well, and I'm so glad he said that to you then.
Yeah.
His slogan is, it's not about me, it's about we. And that's a beautiful thing because not many union leaders say that. I will tell you my impression of him was that he was trying, really trying, and that I think we both recognize that there was a lot to clean up after Harry's tenure, and I don't think there was stuff there that he expected to see. So I'm try to be open-minded. I was grateful. This gentleman took my call twice. I'm not kidding you. He picked up the phone when I called. And the first time he didn't know who he was, and I was, and the second time he did. And he still took my call. I think he genuinely wants to help you. I think he genuinely wants to do the right thing. And he's new, right? So give him a chance to break his shoes in and get comfortable. And there is a lot to fix up. Look, your Medicare drug plan was a shock to many of you. And that's because when he walked into this, your drug plan was basically going bankrupt. Harry was relying upon money from the stabilization fund to fund your welfare fund. And when the fund went bankrupt, remember, Harry left last June, right? Yeah. So he was then forced to come up with a plan. It was either you were going to have to buy your plan at $180 a month from the city, or I don't know, have costs like you wouldn't believe. So what he did was put all of you on a pure Medicare Part D drug plan that Emblem does offer. Many of the unions don't do that. They call them equivalents, but they're really not. Other unions that provide a drug plan for their Medicare population, you can't go get vaccinations. You can't go get like a shingle shot or stuff like that, or vaccinations for flu or whatever. If you go, they want to charge you for those like $250. He didn't do that. He gave you a pure Medicare Part D plan. Was it a shock? Absolutely, because it gave you costs that you weren't expecting and you didn't have. But your alternative was to have nothing. And
Yep.
I know people don't like hearing me say that, but he literally put you on a pure Medicare Part D plan with a cap of $2,100. That is the federal standard. That's like considered the gold point, because most people that want a Part D plan, that's what they give you. You are on a pure Part D plan. There are retirees who are in like the police unions and whatever, who are not on a pure Part D plan, that they don't offer those things for them, and they don't even have the maximum. There's not a cap in their plans. So you have all of those protections. Is it more than what you were spending the last time? Yes. But you have the best protection that's available to you.
No, Dennis inherited a real shit show. Harry did a lot of good. He did a lot of bad. Dennis is trying. He's doing a lot of good. He's doing a lot of bad too. Everybody's giving him a shot. It's not easy.
Yeah, I can't tell you about that. I could just tell you about my conversations on the medical, and he was open to listening, which was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing. And hopefully he will see you soon. That way you guys can talk.
Yes. And I'm glad that you guys are listening. Active workers and retirees coming together. That is really an awesome thing to see within the same local. So keep encouraging that, because the active workers, while they're not thinking about their healthcare, I'll tell you, when this fight for us first started in 21, we called a sanitation garage and we got a young man on the phone who was in his 20s. And he said, listen, lady, if I have to sell off that old people's insurance just so that I could get a raise today, I'm going to do it, because that means I got to be here for another 40 years. Do you understand me? He goes. And I was like, oh my gosh. I said, what happened if you get hurt tomorrow and you're on disability? You're totally screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys get hurt on and go on disability. You get line of duty all the time. So this is, you have a dangerous job. So I was talking to another friend of mine about this, and she was like tossing a lithium ion battery into the garbage. And I was like, no, don't do that. And they're like, well, I was like, you could put the whole garbage truck on fire. So you get hurt, you get into accidents, some of your members die. I mean, you have to know, if you get maimed, that you have insurance that's going to protect you, not a plan that's going to put you in the poorhouse. And it's important to pay attention to that now, because you're not going to be able to pay attention to it later when you're fighting for your life.
Yeah, and when you're retired, you don't have a say. So it's up to the actives to make sure that the union listens. So, we're protected.
So when you are retired and you no longer have a say, you're protected, because you're not. We found out the hard way. We thought when you retire, like, the unions always protected us, which they always did until this 2014. And then this really changed the trajectory. That's when we learned we have no say, we have no rights, we have nothing. And then the unions union leadership of this small little group are telling the elected officials, don't you listen to them. They're nobodies. We control what happens to them. No, you don't. Which is why we won 11 times in court across 3 different cases. And we made them look foolish. And yet, union power, whatever. But look, they turned a whole population of retirees against them. I should never have had to say out loud, my union doesn't represent me. Even though I'm not in the union, you should have wanted me to be there for you, rah, union. You protect me, I'm protecting you. We need unions. We need good, strong unions. What we don't need is corruption, because if you have that, it destroys the entire labor movement as a whole, and it feeds a talking point to a population that wouldn't blink twice if you were gone. We can't have that. The unions have to be strong. They have to be credible. They have to be transparent. But they also have to not sell out their retired unionists. So hopefully that's their come to Jesus moment, Sal.
Being teachers and Doritos union have such weight when it comes to voting that they pretty much nullify all the other unions. Can you leave the MLC?
Say that question again.
And like the small unions who feel like they don't have a say, can they leave the MLC?
Okay, so the Municipal Labor Committee is a voluntary umbrella organization. They act like they're the mafia, but they're not. They have no bargaining certificate. The only ones that have bargaining certificates are the unions. Your union has a bargaining certificate. The Municipal Labor Committee does not. We've gone through the bylaws. The bylaws does not make it mandatory bargaining. Michael Mulgrew, Alan Klinger, Henry Garrido like to say, healthcare is negotiated at the MLC. We have a document literally from the former, back in the 80s, the former commissioner of labor and the director of Office of Collective Bargaining that literally states that the MLC does not bargain. It does not represent unions. It was formed to be a coalition to bring the unions together to help them in the bargaining process. Look, if you go to bargain and let's say you're out of a contract for 5 years, that's a really bad thing to not have a contract for 5 years, right? If you have a brotherhood of another 100 unions behind you and going, none of us are going to go into the next round of bargaining until you settle this deal with Sal. Or if you're underpaid and understaffed and your guys are killing yourselves, we should go, we ain't talking to you about the next contract until you do the right thing by this union. EMTs and paramedics, lowest paid, uniformed, treated like civilians, and underpaid like shit. Why isn't the MLC standing up to Office of Collective Bargaining and Office of Labor Relations and saying, do the right thing here? They're not. And that was what they were supposed to be, is this coalition to help labor, strength, power, collective action come together and help lift up our brothers and sisters in labor. They're not doing that. What they're literally doing is leveraging the little unions, the big unions against the little unions, where the little guys, and there's a lot of little guys, have no power. Yeah. What else you got?
Unions that always look out for the retirees, then the union leaders folded, whether they were leveraged, threatened, or just on the take. They just screwed the retirees. That's not a question, it's a statement.
Yeah, Mike, that's because you're not in the bargaining unit. You don't pay the union dues. Some retirees, like the teachers, will always say, "Oh, I pay the union dues." I said, "No, you pay a retiree chapter dues. You're not in the collective bargaining unit. You have no right to vote on a contract. That's why they don't care about you. And if you don't believe me, go to your union contract. Look at Article 1. Article 1 in every union contract says who that union represents. It says those appointed in specific titles. It lists all the titles before an employing agency in the city of New York. You're not an appointed title. You're not an employee in the city of New York. You are not under that collective bargaining agreement. Sorry.
Here's a nice one. I love how we are uniting with the actives. It's scary when reneging promises is becoming the new normal. They started with the healthcare we paid into and got vested in. MLC is not showing full regard for the pension actives are paying into now.
I love Laura. Well, I love you, Laura. I know. Mary Ann, you should talk to former business agent Phil Servitor. Do you know who Phil is?
Yeah, Philly, he used to be the Queens East business agent. Great, great business agent. He ran against Harry back in 2012, and he lost to Harry, but he did cause a lot of changes within the union. He's retired now.
I think I did speak to him like 2 years ago because the name sounds familiar.
Philly Servitor, Philly. His slate was Courage to Change slate.
Hmm.
But he ran against Harry back in 2012.
Okay. I did speak to Phil. He's in my cell phone. That's how I know. I keep everyone's number. That way I know I spoke to you.
No, Philly was a good guy.
Very cool. Thanks, Anthony. It's getting near my bedtime, honey. I'm an old lady.
Me too.
You're an old lady.
But sanitation workers are usually in bed by now.
What time do you have to get up?
It's 4:30, 5.
Oh my goodness. I can't hear you.
Harry Nespoli stinks.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, this Irene Jordan, while I'm not destitute, but 1 month Con Ed bill is $9.75. Oh my God. I don't know what I'll turn to OMAD means, 1 meal a day, but 1 meal a day, I see it. So I'll tell you, Irene, because my pension is so low, I need to make sure I can pay my bill. And I do levelized billing. So it kind of it equalizes. So they look at my bill and they see what I would spend in a year and they level it out, and it does really help, especially with those highs like high heating, high air conditioning, and it levels out your bill all month. Call Con Ed and see if they do levelized billing and if it might help you. It did help me, to be quite honest with you. I don't get hit with that high air conditioning bill in July, August, or the high heating bill in January, February. So and then at the end, if you paid too much, they'll credit you, or if you didn't pay enough, there's a little bit of an offset, and it's usually in that last month or the month after. So talk to them about levelized billing. Okay. Do you see anything else?
The live show tonight, excuse me if it was asked already, but what are your thoughts on the $4 billion from pension funds going into public housing?
So, like I said in the beginning, you can go back and listen to the beginning, but in a short and sweet, in the article in the Chief today and in the New York Times and on social media, this has been done for decades, whether you knew it or not, and goes back to in the 40s when the local 3 union used union monies to build Electchester in Queens. Harry Van Arsdale was the president. That is still union labor owned, individually owned as well, co-ops. In the city of New York, using pension monies to invest in housing, they've done that too, I believe, as early as the 90s. So this is not something that's new. I would like to see some oversight on that, as they are pulling money out of the pension system to invest in an AFL-CIO trust fund that would be used for that specific purpose. I would like to see more reporting on that. I'd like to see it on a quarterly basis, actually. And I think because we're all stakeholders, whether we're currently retired or future retirees. Current pension investment is at about, current retirees are fully invested from what they're telling us. It is for future retirees who is about 85% funded, and that amortization schedule to fully fund the pensions should be at 100% funding by 2032. So taking $4 billion out, they've been doing this for decades, but I would like to see that there is more oversight on that. Their theory on this and how they work this out, and I'm sure there's going to be a report on previous investments. They take money out of the pension system, they put it in a trust fund. The trust fund earns money. They take money out and they're paying union labor to build these affordable housing for union workers. And then eventually, even though Sal and I were discussing this, repayment is over 40-year amortization. It's like a 30-year mortgage. This is a 40-year mortgage. And the theory is that when those apartments are built, you will rent them affordable housing. They're telling us as low as $1,000 a month. And then you're paying rent, which is paying it back. So, and since union jobs are supposed to be stable, you're going to pay your rent. It's affordable. Typically, the rents today, they're saying, are an average of about more than 50% of your income. They were talking about how New York City, a low pension in Manhattan is $5,000 a month for, I think, like a 1-bedroom. And for a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom is like $8,000 a month, which is absolutely ridiculous. So that's not an affordable rent for us civil servants. Maybe rich people, that's okay, but not for us. So yes, that's what they're saying is how that will operate. I would like to see more transparency on that, but since it's been done for decades and there's been no one screaming that the house is falling because of it, and there is a return on investment from the construction, it's paying labor workers, building housing for labor, and you're getting money back when you do eventually finish the construction in the form of rent. So that's kind of a little nutshell on that. It's safer. I go back to the beginning. I talk about the pension bonds and I talk about the reamortization, what they were trying to do, which we don't like, that did cause destruction of other pension systems and bankruptcy of even municipalities. So go back to the beginning. I think that was actually one of the first comments that we had. What else you got?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just actives, please get involved. Join Marianne's organization, nycretirees.org. Donate if you can. Every dollar helps her fight these lawsuits and whatnot, and get involved. One day we'll be retirees. So even if you have a day on the job, you need to focus on when you retire. It's going to come up soon, and then once you retire, you don't have a say.
Thank you for that. Our website is up at the top, nycretirees.org. Our treasurer called us today and said we do need to push up on our fundraising. So even if you were to do, 10 or 20 bucks a month to help us out, that would be completely amazing. Whatever you can give. We never force people to do something. It was always an amount. We always ask to do a recurring donation. We have retirees that give 10 bucks a month, 20 bucks a month, some better paid retirees can give us $100 a month if there's two spouses in the same house. But they help us out as much as we can because they know we're still in court. They know that we're fighting to protect something that nobody else is protecting. So whatever you can do, we truly do appreciate that. We have to pay. None of us get paid, by the way. None of the officers. We're all volunteers. No one gets stipend. No one gets a kickback. No one gets any of that. Our 990s are published on the IRS website. We have 2 litigation attorneys, a tax attorney, and a paid bookkeeper because we want to make sure that doing all of this money is handled correctly and that there's no, problems with it. We have to pay an accountant to do all of our taxes. So it's an organization running like a union, but none of us are getting paid. We don't get those 6-figure salaries or even a single salary. But yet here I am at 9:30 at night talking to all of you, and this is on my time. But this is why we do this, is because we believe you need to know. Because if you don't know what's happening to us and why we're driven to keep fighting this on a daily basis to make sure that we're protected and that you know what's happening to us, because one day you will be in our shoes or you will be screaming at City Hall on the sidelines with us, and you will be like, why are you doing this? And we'll be like, we'll be doing this now for 25 years. Where were you? But yeah, pay attention, because if they're treating us this shitty today, they're going to treat you just as shitty, if not shittier, tomorrow. So thank you for inviting me to do this with you.
Thank you for doing this for us.
All right, great. So you guys have a wonderful evening, and let me know when you want to do Sanitation Edition 3.
I'll let you guys know. Thank you very much.
All right, guys. You have a great night. Love ya.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life, you know you can't pretend. The days pass by, baby, set it strong.